In 3 days, the UN will decide whether or not to renew the mandate of the special rapporteur for the Middle East, Francesca Albanese. We've talked about her a lot on this channel. We'll talk about her a lot more in the coming days. But of course, anybody who's following what's going on, anybody who's following this channel knows there is no one more perfect for this job. Maybe there's nobody more perfect for any job anywhere in the world than Francesca Albanese being the person making sure that rights are respected when it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Her entire career has been dedicated to what she sees as really the one thing preventing the world that she would like to see. Um, the existence of the state of Israel. She has fought against it from the start. It's uh, probably what bothers her most about it is that it's a Jewish state, but it's also a rights-respecting state in the Middle East, and that is not okay with Francesca Albanese. We're going to talk today both on the Daily Objective and on the reality show about some of her past statements, some of her current positions. There is not much change, and what it says to the world about the UN um, that we really should listen to, that they choose a person like this as their representative in that region. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg. I'm joined by Daniel Kraus. Daniel, your thoughts?
When judging if somebody is right for their position, you have to go and judge them by the standards of that position. So let's go to the position she is holding and maybe will hold for 3 years because these special rapporteurs are appointed for 3 years. So the special rapporteur is an independent expert appointed by the United Nations Human Rights Council to follow and report on the human rights situation in the occupied Palestinian territory. Now, usually it's referred to since 1967, meaning the occupied territories are the West Bank, all of West Bank, including East Jerusalem, as well as Gaza. And now it's a bit longer, but I'll just uh, go to one specific thing. The mandate of the special rapporteur derives from the 1993 resolution from the Committee of Human Rights. The mandate calls on the special rapporteur to investigate Israel's violation of the principles and basis of international law, international humanitarian law, and the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilian persons in a type of war of 12th August 1949 in the Palestinian territories occupied by Israel since 1967. And then at the end it says to report with his conclusions and recommendation to the Commission on Human Rights at its future sessions until the end of the Israeli occupation of these territories. So she pretty much, her whole point is to report until West Bank and Gaza are ethnically cleansed of all Jews. This is exactly what it is. As long as this position is here, it is specifically until all Jews are out of these territories. Now, when it comes to even this position of special rapporteurs, it's not that the Palestinian territories are the only position there is. There is also one for Belarus, one for Iran, one for North Korea, but all of them are supposed to report to their specific countries. Basically, they go to Belarus and say to Belarus, hey, you're violating the human rights of your own country. It's only specifically here where she doesn't report on Palestinians like Hamas or Palestinian Authority violating human rights of their own people. No, it's only specifically Israel that is supposedly violating the rights of Palestinians. This is the only position that is created like that. It's the only position that is permanent. And as well as when you go to the UN, Israel and the violations of Israel is the only thing that's on permanent agenda, meaning they always criticize Israel. They have to always criticize Israel. It's always on the agenda. And well, we'll go into how much that fits into what she has been doing, but this is the purpose of this role specifically.
Yeah, yeah, and the purpose of the role, as you mentioned, is basically the mandate is until the ethnic cleansing of all Jews from the West Bank, the ones from Gaza have already been ethnically cleansed, and but that's not her goal. Like she doesn't talk about the 1967 borders Very rarely does she, but that's also not what she sees as the problem. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but I want to first, do we have, yes, do we have that video ready, Daniel? So this is somebody, just for context, although I think our viewers mostly know this, um, the UN, in 2024, for example, a year that started 3 months after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, in 2024, the UN General Assembly adopted 23 resolutions. 17 of them were anti-Israel and six dealt with the rest of the world. So that's generally what this body is. And now let's hear somebody from UN Watch in the UN.
Nothing justifies the appalling manner in which Israel has conducted its military operations in Gaza, which consistently breached fundamental principles of international humanitarian law.
I give the floor to United Nations Watch.
High Commissioner, my name is Loy Ahmed and I come from Yemen. I ask the UN, the Arab League and everyone who has been raising the Palestinian flag since October 7, where is the flag of Yemen? In my country, 500,000 people have died in the last 10 years. The biggest famine and humanitarian crisis in modern history. Why does no one care when 500,000 Yemenis die? What about Sudan? In less than 2 years, more than 150,000 people have been killed. Where is the flag of Sudan? What about Syria? 500,000 Syrians have been killed. Where is the Syrian flag? High Commissioner, why is it that when Arabs kill millions of Arabs, no one bats an eye? Where is the outrage and where are the protests? Why don't you mention the Houthis in Yemen, who have spent millions of dollars firing missiles at Israel instead of feeding my starving people? May I ask why your report mentions Israel 188 times, yet fails to mention the Islamic regime in Iran even once? How can you speak about the conflict while ignoring the party that has armed, trained, and funded terror proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, who have been bombing Israel thousands of times? And why is Qatar sitting here as a member of the Human Rights Council when they host the Hamas terror leaders in luxury hotels?
Uh, Bonnie asks, did he get an answer? Well, not in that clip. We don't know, but look, this is we've seen this. Daniel, you and Alex talked about this yesterday as well. Hillel Neuer was literally quoting Francesca Albanese, and the Palestinians wanted him silenced and got what they wanted. Because if you're gonna approve these people, approve them with the what they pretend to be rather than what they really are. And that's also the point with this clip. I mean, this is very well said and completely misses the mark in a sense, because you're assuming that these people actually care when innocent civilians die. They don't. If they care to the point that they are happy about it, as we saw on October 7th. So you're assuming that is the problem, and again, in a sense, it is good to say that just to highlight the fact that these people don't actually care about mass murder of civilians. What they care about and what they want to see is the elimination of the state of Israel and the extermination of the Jews in Israel. And again, we'll get to more of why that is clearly Francesca Albanese's life mission in this episode and in future episodes.
I mean, you have to think about what the UN is and how it works. You cannot get any sort of somebody bringing up, like he said, the Houthis or Sudan or Iran, because anything that is passed, well, one, if you want to pass it through the UN Security Council, then you need approval of Russia and China. But even when you want to just do a general sort of just a resolution that doesn't really matter, but sure, better than nothing, I guess. Then you still have to get an agreement, right? And is Iran and Iran aligned states, are they gonna have anything bad to say about the Houthis? Are they gonna have anything bad to say about the Hezbollah? Same when it comes to Syria. Many of the nations, when Assad was still in power, many of the nations, such as Russia, such as Iran, such as parts of, Lebanon, have been allied with that regime. Why would they ever want to vote against that? UN is a moral travesty of an organization by design, by the fact that you give the same voting power to all these nations. And then, now we're gonna have a vote on the or I'm still unclear how exactly she gets appointed. Some say that it's sort of by sort of consensus. Basically, they all decide together. Some say that it's by vote. Now, when it comes to the UN Human Rights Council, not all nations at the same time are sitting there. It basically rotates, and at one time there's only I don't know, like 30 to 40, something like that, and they are from different regions. And many of them who are sitting, such as Germany, Netherlands, I believe also France, have said they do not support Francesca Albanese for another appointment. Many have said they will not support, but there is many other nations, and they might, they would like it. I mean, the position by itself is to criticize Israel. That's like an actual description of it. It's to criticize Israel by, the standards they're using. I think is very flawed from the objective standard, but sort of very righteous from the so-called international law standard. This is her job, and she will be she will 100% be appointed again because she is right for the job. And on the reality show we'll go through much more stuff about all the stuff she said in the past, all of the stuff she said even before she became the UN special rapporteur. And so we knew this about her, and this was exactly why she was appointed. And even if she somehow not the one being appointed, I watched her interview on the Rest is Politics, where she talked about how no UN special rapporteurs have been allowed into Israel or have been allowed into territories by Israel, basically saying, they are discriminated against. And yeah, of course, the whole purpose of them is to delegitimize Israel, is to spread propaganda against Israel, is to spread like anti-Israeli rhetoric to basically delegitimize the state. Uh, Again, Israel took Gaza and took West Bank because the other nations have decided to try to kill them again, and for security reasons, Israel took those states, took those parts, and then pulled out of some of them. But that wasn't enough. All of Israel needs to go. I mean, now they just say, just 67 borders. That's all we want. We just want 67 borders. But the fact is, even when Francesca Albanese was asked about this, where she said, one time, now she says, a tragedy happened, 60 years ago that we are now paying for, or something along those lines, basically referring to 67. But one time somebody corrected her and said, no, it's actually 80 years. And she agreed that it's 80 years. She then deleted those comments because that would mean establishment of Israel was a mistake. And then somebody corrected her again, saying that it was 100 years. Basically, Jews just coming into the area was already sort of a violation of international law, was already too much.
But that's the whole anti-Israel line today. Like, that is it. They stole the land, meaning this land belongs to a race, the Arabs, and a Jew living there, that is the worst crime that can happen. Killing the Jew is an act of resistance, but the Jew's life, that is the real genocide, apartheid, whatever words these people want to use to convince Westerners, and they're convincing Westerners to side with the most savage society on the planet today and against the only civilized country in the sea of savagery that is the Middle East. And she's doing a great job because people do consider her a serious person. So there's this article in the Telegraph on from the 21st of October 2023, titled UN's Palestinian human rights expert linked Israel's actions to the Holocaust. It gives a bunch of quotes of hers, and then again the article starts with the UN's independent expert for Palestinian human rights. So the Telegraph in this article understood that we're dealing here with an anti-Semitic, person whose whole life's mission is to get rid of the Jewish state. But they still use the word expert. Wherever she goes, she's considered an expert. And again, the only thing she truly is an expert in is how to create the kind of propaganda that would convince people to try again what Europe tried in the previous century. I want to just say that one thing she said on October 7th was today's violence must be put in context. That's true. That's always true. It should always be put in context. But this is, I don't know of her ever saying this about any part of Israel's response to the October 7th slaughter of Jews. And yeah, I don't know of her ever saying about any Israeli military action that it was justified. I'm almost certain she would not ever say that. So yeah, remember when these people want to put things in context, they say, look, the mass murder of women and children is a good thing. That is what they're saying to you. It is a good thing. But when it's of people in Gaza, that is when it's a war crime. When it's for the people in Gaza who are trying to actually commit a genocide, that's when it becomes a bad thing. So yeah, again, with Francesca Albanese, uh, it is important to remind the world what she said, as UN Watch tried to do in the UN and was silenced by Palestine.
Um, Now, you asked what she's an expert in, or basically that she's not an expert in. And, she's a lawyer and she's supposedly expert on international law. And I think I'm always struggling with international law, and because basically the way people are using it is they just say international law, and in this is it's this magical thinking that this is just the right thing, this is just the correct, but there is no international law. There are treaties that some nations decide to sign into, and some nations don't. So oftentimes they say, well, Israel is violating international law. Israel is not a signatory to that thing. They have no obligations toward it. And even the idea that sort of you would, I think, sign over your national authority towards some sort of like international so-called document, I think is already a very problematic thing and probably should never be allowed. But ask them when they say this is a violation of international law. Ask them, okay, what specifically? What specifically is Israel violating? Because anytime they try to bring up anything, it never holds any ground. And the saddest thing is, it doesn't matter because you just invoke international law, and everybody agrees that Israel is violating international law. It's something that nobody even disputes. It's like, yeah, of course, and it is really this. I'm trying to really grasp on some concept from Ayn Rand because something is on the tip of my tongue that this is like a real sort of like a shortcut, like it really is meaning like the whole purpose of international law in this specific scenario is to just delegitimize Israel, is to just make sure that any actions Israel takes are inherently uh, sort of violating, are inherently evil. You know, Israel has been controlling Golan Heights for longer than Syria ever has. Is all the people in Golan Heights that want a citizenship, that want to be full citizens, can be so. It was annexed by Israel, and it was also recognized by the U.S. by all like I cannot even find any different standard. By all standards, by all objective standards, this is a legal part of Israel. This is a part of Israel, and there is no disputing. But it still has this occupied thing. It's still, and it will have indefinitely. I mean, nobody will ever sort of recognize it. It will literally not be okay. It will literally be illegal until what? Some savages take it over, like Al Golani or whatever his new name is right now in Syria. Until Islamists take it over, that's when we say, okay, now it's the right thing to do. Now that nobody has any individual rights in that area, now it's a proper thing to do. And I really cannot, I don't even know how to talk to people who like Francesca Albanese or think she is a good person or she is achieving something good. There is nothing good here. Her whole purpose of life even is just to hate Jews, is just to fight against Israel as long as possible, and not to look at Palestinians or Hamas or Palestinian Authority and not to find any evil of them. It's literally not even in the description of her job. She's not even supposed to like report or comment on the Palestinian Authority or Hamas doing something evil. That's not part of her job. The part of her job is only to shit on Israel, basically.
Yeah, I mean the Golan Heights is interesting because this was I remember, in my younger years in Israel debating people who said the Golan Heights should be given back to Syria. And I'm like, you're sending people into a dictatorship. And their answer was usually the standard leftist, people have a right to self-determination, which is a way to justify any gang taking over any territory and saying, okay, well, that's the Saudis' self-determination is they're all going to live in a jihadist Islamic theocracy. Yeah, that so remember that when it comes to Israel, other so-called occupied territories, they were also occupied from dictatorships. If they had the right to self-determination, they would determine that they want to be dictatorships. And yeah, you mentioned international law is designed to be anti-Israel. It's designed to be anti-Western, anti-countries that don't want to start wars. When they're forced into wars, make sure they can't win, or if they do, we can put them on trial for war crimes. That's, I think, in essence, international law and its purpose. Back to Francesca Albanese and the uh, talk about 1967 borders, which again is not a thing that we hear nowadays a lot from the anti-Israel crowd. This is a thing that was mostly popular among the Israeli left because it's an Israeli leftist fantasy, which is we have a country within the 1967 borders. There is a Palestinian state in Gaza, in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and all that, and we'll live side by side in peace and security. And again, we talk about this all the time. Every step that has been taken towards that vision has resulted in more death, more misery on both sides in a sense, although I don't think the Palestinians are miserable when they're being bombarded because they keep choosing it. So we need to remember that. And yeah, Francesca Albanese's tweets about it in the past, whatever she tweeted, deleted or not, she has spoken about the Nakba of 1948. And supposedly well, the way the article says it is an Arabic reference to Palestinian displacement from 1948, as in they started a war. Not they weren't referred to as Palestinian at the time, but they started a war. They lost it. They had to leave. Um, but again, they started a war because Jews wanted to live there, and they weren't okay with Jews living there, and that has always been the issue. It is still the issue, and I've said this before. If these people were honest, the real Nakba for them, the real disaster was not 1948, but 1945, when the war ended without the goal that they're now fighting for having been completed for them.
Yeah, and here you see again the sort of irrelevancy of international law because establishment of Israel and Palestine, which happened at the same time, was according to international law. There was basically League of Nations was founded. That was basically a precursor to the UN that was supposed to uphold international law, and it tried to do many things. It tried to stop the Italian invasion of Ethiopia or Abyssinia, which I think it was called then. It tried to stop the Winter War between Soviet Union when Soviet Union attacked Finland, and they established these mandates in the Middle East, basically saying, yes, we do recognize or we recognize this idea of self-determination. We establish a mandate. I think Iraq also had a mandate. Mandate for Transjordan, mandate for Iraq, mandate for Palestine, and the result of that was the UN resolution after that, basically saying, okay, we're gonna have these two states, Israel and Palestine. Israel said, yeah, we'll take it. We'll uphold the international law. And the Arabs said, no, now the international law is not suiting us, so we'll just attack Israel and take it. And Israel was able to defend itself and establish itself. And since then, the only purpose of international law is to basically destroy Israel. And I want to fight on the international law. Maybe there are some good things, but nobody cares. The only purpose is to attack Israel. And when is when international law is suiting you, then we'll use it. If it's not suiting you, then they won't use it. But the whole purpose is just to attack Israel. It's just to attack the fact that Israel is the one free nation in the Middle East, is the one nation that is upholding Western values, or at least is trying to, one nation that is able to defend itself, one nation that is able to establish itself. But because some people don't want it, because some people would rather have Palestinians dying while fighting Israel. And just a heads up, Francesca Albanese do wants Palestinians to fight Israel. She wants them to engage in violent acts against Israel. And for people who want to know a bit more about that and me making the case for it, should watch the reality show starting in right after this, basically in like 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, and even the quote from her from October 7th, which again, we never heard when terrorists are being taken out. We never heard that, when the, Mohammed Def or Sinwar was taken out. We didn't hear her say, well, put it in context. These are murderers, and Israel isn't too keen on being murdered, or having their citizens murdered. But anyway, am I the only one who thinks Transjordan is a great name for like a post-op glamour model? I don't think that would have aged well. Luckily, Arabs, don't really get along with each other and end up murdering each other, and that didn't last. But anyway, yeah, I know you're going to talk a lot about this in the reality show, but there is, and I'm guessing you're going to talk about this part, but she has drawn comparisons between Israel and the Nazis. She, which is again interesting because the Nazis wanted to kill all the Jews. Um, Israel exists to prevent future Nazis from carrying out such plans, and it is partially successful in doing that when it is trying to defend itself against the Palestinians. But yeah, this is another reminder that the real problem Francesca Albanese has with anything in the world today is the fact that some Jews are still alive. Yeah, and for more actual examples in her own words, make sure you stay tuned to the reality show. Parting thoughts, Daniel?
Well, since you like Transjordan, fun fact, my country or part of my country was used to refer to Lithuania. So that's a fun fact for you.
Not as great a name for a glamour model, but all right, we can debate that in the future. Maybe we'll put it up for a vote. All right. Thanks Daniel. Thanks everyone for watching. More Francesca Albanese on the reality show in a couple of minutes.